Hola a todos, ¿cómo estamos? Buenos días, buenas tardes, dependiendo de donde estés en el mundo. Hey guys, how you doing? Good to see you. Oh, okay, everyone's already here in the chat. Fantastic. Guys, please go ahead and just type something in the chat box. Let me know if you can hear me and see me okay. Hear me and see me okay, even. That's our first little check to make sure that everything's working properly. Hi, Wes, Marilise, Jackie, Paul, Dorothy. Hiya. Just go ahead and let me know that you can hear me and see me, okay? You should be able to hear my face, see my face, hear my voice. Hola, Pedro. Hola, Nancy. Okay, Nancy says yes. Melanie says, okay, wonderful. Well, in that case, I guess we'll start. What I'm going to do right now, guys, is I'm going to switch off my camera and switch over to the slides, because that way, because you don't want to look at my face, you want to look at all the slides that I've lovingly prepared for you. And the slides for these classes are getting more and more complex. I'm enjoying these classes so much that I'm really going to town with the slides a little bit. So anyway, all right then, I'm going to switch over now. So you might have a little delay, and then it'll be straight back with these slides. To me, that you can see the slides okay. You should be able to see a nice picture of a lecture I was giving recently, with a bunch of very interested people in the front. Wonderful. All right then. Well, are you ready to get started? I hope so. So today's class is all about ser and estar. We've been doing lots of these classes recently, but ser and estar has been one of those which is the most requested, because it's tricky. It is tricky indeed. So these are a new series of regular Spanish workshops that I'm running for you guys. We're focusing on the problem areas of Spanish, of which ser and estar definitely is one. The focus of all of these classes is to think like a local, okay? And as you will know, if you've studied Spanish before, when you take classes and read books, you're presented with all these rules, lists of things to remember, and it can seem quite, I guess, overwhelming. What I aim to do in these classes is really cut through all of that and show you exactly how to think about these different problem areas, such that you don't need the rules anymore, because locals, native speakers, don't use rules when they speak, right? So there's no need for you to. Sometimes rules can help, but more often than not, they just confuse you and get in the way. And so as a result of this, the ultimate aim is for you to become a more confident, fluent speaker. So with that said, here is the aim for today. We're learning ser and estar. My aim for the class is you will gain a native-like understanding of the difference between ser and estar in Spanish, such that you can make a confident choice about which to use in a variety of situations. Okay, does that sound good? Is that what you were expecting? I hope so. What we're not going to do today, guys, is look at how to conjugate these verbs, because you can look that up anywhere, and it's just a question of learning that stuff, really. Today we're going to be focusing on the usage of these two verbs, because that's the tricky part. Okay. Good stuff. Couple of quick things. This is an online class, which means I'm not face-to-face with you, unfortunately. If I were face-to-face with you, I'd be hounding you with questions and seeing your face to see how you react. But because of the distance between us, it's really important you interact. So if I ask you a question, please do answer, okay? You will learn more that way, as well as you test your own understanding. Okay, interacting and answering, that's how you learn best. If you just sit there and watch, it will be interesting, but you won't learn as much, okay? Also, please turn off your phones. It's really important. If you're going to stay with me for this hour, I want you to make the most out of it, and that involves shutting down your email, turning off your phones. You will learn more as a result, I guarantee. All right, then. Most of you guys know me. The invitations for these workshops are only issued to those to people who already follow me, so you should be aware of who I am. But in case you found me recently, my name is Olly. I am known for speaking 8 languages. The reason I say 8 to 10 is because I've recently started a few more, but they're not very good yet. I was only 19 when I began learning other languages, so I've learned my languages as an adult. I'm not one of these people that was brought up multilingual, not by a long stretch. I ran educational programs for the British Council for many years. I have a master's degree in linguistics. I'm currently working with the Open University to develop some language courses. I run lots of workshops around the world. Some of you may have been to some of them. We've been in New York and London recently. I have a couple of websites. I Will Teach You a Language, Fluent Spanish Academy. My blog was voted third most popular language blog in the world a couple of years back, which was nice. I've also got many best-selling books, which are bestsellers around the world. So I wanted to just run through those so that you have an idea of who I am, and hopefully I've convinced you that you should listen to what I have to say, because I've spent many years doing this, so I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to help you out today. All right then. Okay, Bernadette says all is okay now. Good stuff. Francis says screen frozen. Guys, I mean, the technology of the internet is not a perfect technology. You may lose a bit of audio or video temporarily during the class. If that does happen, I'm afraid there's nothing I can do about it on my end. You just have to be patient. If it persists, please try logging out and then in again. That usually solves the problem. Nancy, you're very welcome. Okay, quick definitions then. Let's define exactly what we're talking about today. Now, in English, you would say a phrase like this: he is tall. In English, we only have one verb, to be. In Spanish, however, there are two verbs, to be. And so, as such, you can often use both of them depending on the situation. So in Spanish, you would be able to say él es alto, using the verb ser. Or in certain situations, you could say él está alto, using the verb estar. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. The basic problem is that in English we only have one verb for to be. In Spanish there are two. Okay, to you, then this class is going to be a bit overwhelming. Okay, but if you are familiar with this already, then you will get something out of it, I hope. All right then. So ser and estar, for me, I think it's one of the hardest things to get right in Spanish, because it's highly subjective, often, how you use it. Often people talk about the subjunctive and the past tenses in Spanish. I actually think they are easier than learning the difference between ser and estar, because more than the others, I think choosing between these two verbs really relies on a native-like understanding, which is what takes longer to develop. And for that reason, learning lots of rules is not enough. This is where learners of Spanish come unstuck, because native speakers don't learn rules. So it stands to reason that rules will only get you so far as a language learner. Make sense? So in this class, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing on learning to think like a native speaker. That's the best service that I can give you. We will be looking at lots of examples and contrasting them with English, because I'm a big believer in learning by understanding similarities and differences with your own language. Because as adults, one of the advantages that we have over children is that we can use our brain power and our intellectual faculties and our study skills that we've developed. Okay, that's something that kids can't do. You are adults, and I believe it's right to learn as an adult. Now, as always, with these grammar areas, there are exceptions to the rules, and there are things that we don't have time to cover. Okay, so what we will not be getting in this class is a completely comprehensive overview of everything that there is to know, because if we did that, frankly, it would take hours to do, and it wouldn't be useful, because then you have too many things to think about. Okay, here we're going to be focusing on the mindset, and if you can get it right, then you will start to unlock any of the limiting factors in your mind. Okay, now I want to get this in perspective too. There will always be grey areas. It doesn't matter what particular grammar point you're focusing on in Spanish, there will always be gray areas, okay? But in this class, as I was preparing it, what I think I can do in this class is to get you 90% of the way there, okay? To like a 90% understanding of how to use these two verbs in different situations. To get that last 10% requires, to be honest, many, many years of practice, but I'm aiming to get you to that 90% mark so that your knowledge can cover you in most situations, okay? Does that sound reasonable? Does that sound fair? That's what I'm going to be aiming for. Because if you understand how to use ser and estar in 90% of situations, then you can have confidence when you speak. All right. Now, we're going to be breaking this down to 3 areas, and there's something for everybody. We're going to start with the easy cases. Okay. And I'm going to call that the clear cases. Okay. Where there is not much doubt about which verbs to use. And then we're going to move on to the tricky cases. And that leaves us with the tough cases, which will apply at the end. And the 90% mark is about here. Okay. So if you follow me through the first 2/3 of the class without too much trouble, then you will be there. The reason I've got the tough cases at the end is for those of you who maybe have been learning Spanish for some time and you're looking to just really consolidate your understanding, you will most appreciate the last section. All right. Jackie says, sounds great. Good stuff. Robert, thanks for the note about the pointer. I've just moved it off the screen. All right. Let's have a look at a couple of examples of what we will be covering in each situation. So I'm going to give you a little test to see where your current knowledge is. Please go ahead and answer my questions, okay, by typing it in the chat box. It doesn't matter if you get it wrong. That's why we're here, in order to fix any misunderstandings or things that aren't clear. All right, so we've got 4 examples here. We've got example number 1, number 2, number 3, and then number 4, okay? Let's start with the first one. You're going to choose either es or está. Él es fuerte or él está fuerte. Now, here's the situation. You've just met a guy, and he's a man who is he's a very strong person mentally. He's got a very strong character. He can really put up with anything in his life. If you talk about him with your friends, you would say that he's a really strong guy that you can trust and rely on. What do you think? Are you going to use es or está? Ser or estar? Go ahead and type in what you think. We're talking about his character, the kind of person that he is. Okay, we're getting a mix of answers. In this situation, you would say es, el es fuerte. I'm not going to explain at this stage because I'm going to explain why in the rest of the class. Okay? Again, don't worry if you get this wrong. That's why you're here. All right, next one. This same person, maybe he walks in one day and he's super angry. He's super enojado, very angry because he's just been given a parking ticket. And you can see in his face he's really upset, really angry. What are you going to use? Ser or estar? You're going to say él es enojado or él está enojado. Okay, lots of you getting it right with this one. Good job. Okay, él está enojado is correct. All right, then let's move on to the second one. This is the tricky part. Now, la casa was abandonada. Now, abandonada means abandoned. I'm trying to pick words that are easy to understand. So we're talking about a house that was abandoned and left behind last year. So someone was living there, but they suddenly decided, right, I'm off. I'm not living here anymore. So they packed up and they're last year. That's the situation. It's in the past tense. Are you going to use, when you're telling your friend about what happened, about the fact that this house was abandoned and left behind by somebody, are you going to say la casa fue abandonada or la casa estaba abandonada? Okay. As I expected, we're getting a much bigger mix of responses now. This is because we're moving into the tricky zone. Okay. Pat's having problems with predictive text. No worries. So, Megan, we're talking about the fact that it was abandoned, that someone left it behind. We're talking about what happened. Okay. And for that reason, we would say la casa fue abandonada. Okay? And then the last one, this is the very tricky part. Now, you have been talking to a guy on the phone. You've arranged to meet him to discuss some business. You've talked to him on the phone and you're just meeting him for the first time. He walks into the room and it's the first time you've seen him. And you think to yourself, wow, he's really tall. He's much taller than you expected. So you turn to your friend and what do you say? Do you say, wow, él es alto, or wow, él está alto? What do you think? Okay. Again, another big mix. I'd say you're mostly saying es alto, but actually in that situation you say él está alto. Okay, so actually I'm pleased because the three sections that I've divided the class into are, and I've with clear, tricky, and tough, seem to have been borne out by your answers. So that's good, guys. All right, now let's start talking about why that's the case. Okay, you ready? Let's do it. All right then. So, ser represents truth. Whenever you're talking about permanence and truth, or the essential characteristics of something that never change, you're using ser. Ser is extremely reliable, honest, and trustworthy. If ser tells you that something is true, you believe him 100%. He's very reliable, you trust him with your life, and if you were sitting on a train and you left your wallet behind with $1,000 in cash on the seat next to ser, he would run straight to the nearest police station and hand it in. That's who ser is. Now, estar, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. Estar is this guy. You can't trust him for a minute. He's erratic. He's unreliable. He'll change his story from 1 minute to the next. If you ask him a question, he'll tell you whatever you want to hear, rather than the truth. If you met Estar, you certainly would not want to leave your iPhone lying around when he's in the room, because he'd probably steal it. Okay? Now, these are the two basic qualities of these verbs. Ser represents truth and honesty and permanence. Estar represents a fleeting, unreliable, erratic nature. Now, obviously I'm simplifying, but these are the images that I want you to have in your mind as we go through this class, and we'll be referring back to them in our examples. Okay? So, let's get into it. I would like you to meet Carlos, and Carlos is going to be with us here in part one where we talk about the clear cases. Carlos is a colleague of yours. You work with him and he's a really nice guy. If someone asked you, so what's Carlos like as a person? You'd say nothing but good things. You'd say, es simpático, he's nice. You'd say, es alto, he's tall. You'd say, es fuerte, he's very, very strong guy. These are the things that you'd say about him. Now, let me ask you, these characteristics of Carlos, nice, tall, strong, is that just today? Or is he always like that? Are these permanent characteristics, or is it just today? What do you say? Yeah, so June says always. Yeah, exactly. We're talking about permanent characteristics. When we say that he's nice, we are. Rene just said she should have named her dog Estar. That's fantastic. All right. Yeah, so we're talking about permanent qualities of this guy, right? He's simpático by nature. He's always tall. He's always strong. It's just who he is, right? So this is why we use ser to talk about Carlos. This is just who he is. Now, one day, one very strange day, he walks in, and something's weird. He comes in and he's drunk. Comes in clutching a beer can. He's had about 10 beers. Está borracho. He's covered in mud. Está sucio. And he's extremely angry. He's extremely enojado. You don't know what happened. You've never seen him like this before. You don't know what happened. And you're a bit shocked. Now, let me ask you, these qualities here, the fact that he's dirty, he's drunk, he's really angry, is that permanent? Or is this something is it something temporary and fleeting? Was he like that yesterday? Will he be like that tomorrow? Yeah. Judith, Meredith, Mark, Jan, Carol. Carol says, hopefully temporary. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. These are all temporary things, right? That are happening right now. So for that reason, it's represented by this guy. You cannot really trust what you're seeing. And even if you're seeing it with your own two eyes, it wasn't like that yesterday. It probably won't be like that tomorrow. It's just a temporary state. And so for that reason, we use estar. Okay? Is that clear? Now, let me give you a little test to see if you've got that main point. I'd like you to meet Julia. Now, Julia is your neighbor. And she has a number of characteristics. And I'd like you to tell me whether, when you're describing Julia, whether you would use ser or estar. So she is arrogante. Arrogant. She is difícil. She's a very difficult person. But for some reason today, she's smiling. And she's very tanned as well. She's sonriente and morena. Probably because she's just been on a skiing trip. And so she's just come back. And so she's super happy right now. And she's got a nice tan. And, oh yeah, there's one more thing that I forgot to tell you about her. She's very, very short. She's very, very baja. Okay? So, here are the 5 adjectives. Arrogante, difícil. And then one day you see her and she's sonriente and morena. She's smiling and very tanned. She's also very short. I'd like you to go in and type in the 5 verbs in order. So, for example, if you think the first 2 are estar, then just type in estar twice. I'd like you to type in the 5 verbs in order that you think would represent these 5 characteristics. Okay. Anna's put 6 in. I'm not sure where the 6 come from. Okay, cool. I'm going to pick what Sarah said. Sarah said, es arrogante. Let's have a look. Yes. Es arrogante. Sarah also said, es difícil. There we go. She's difficult. So she's an arrogant person. She's a difficult person. She's always like that. It's her essential characteristics, right? That's why we use es. Now, Sarah also said, está sonriente. Correct. Because she's not normally smiling. She's normally a very difficult person. But today, for some reason, she's smiling. She's also tanned because she's just come back from a skiing trip, which is not normally the case. So as Sarah said, está morena. She's usually not tanned, but it's just right now she's tanned because of the fact that she's been away. The tan will fade in time, as will her smile. So for those two reasons, because they're temporary, they're things that are happening temporarily, and they're not essential parts of her character, we use está. And then finally, I told you that she's very short, so we use es, because she's not just short today, she's always short. She's of low stature, should we say. Okay, those are the answers. Most of you got them right. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them in now. I will answer them if I can, if they're direct to the point, but hopefully you've understood that. Likewise, if you've understood this and you're clear with this, go ahead and type in understood or entendido or claro, something like that. Let me know that you've understood it. But as I'm looking through here, most of you guys have got it right. But again, if you've got any questions, a couple of you have given está for the first two. But remember, arrogant and difficult. We are talking, I'm describing her here. I'm telling you about her. It's not just today that she's difficult. She's always like this, right? And so that's why, in my view, she is it's an essential part of her character. And so we use es. Okay, lots of claros coming through. So that's good. Okay, John says, why was the first test está alto? And then this is es baja. Okay, so John, it's a good question. And you're right to answer it. But I'm going to wait until the end to answer that one because the one that you're referring to in the first test is a very special case, okay? The thing to remember is, as a general rule, whenever you're describing essential characteristics of something, we're going to use es, always. Okay, right. Now, as you can see, es and está actually have very different meanings from the perspective of a Spanish speaker. Okay, and what I'd like to do now is show you actually how some words can actually change depending on the verb that's used. So I'm just going to give you two adjectives here, listo and aburrido. Now, let me show you how these meanings can change depending on the verb that you use. Now, if you say that someone es listo, you're talking about their essential characteristics. And so that means that they've always been that way, they were born that way. Now, if you say está listo, what that means is you're ready. There's no connection, it's a totally different meaning. But can you see how es listo is referring to an essential characteristic and how está listo is referring to something that's happening right now? I'm ready right now. It has no relevance to before or very fleeting, very temporary. Okay? Now, with aburrido, if you say está aburrido, I'm saying I'm bored, or he is bored. Él está aburrido. He's bored right now because he has nothing to do. But if we say es aburrido, does anybody know what that's going to mean? If you say es aburrido, it actually means he's a boring person. He's boring because es, we're talking about his essential characteristics, right? His essential character. So can you see how these adjectives change meaning depending on whether you're using ser and estar? Now, what I'm showing you here on this slide, they're not rules. Okay, I'm not asking you to go and remember a ton of different words and which verb they take. Demonstrate the nature of ser and estar further so you really feel like you understand it, okay? When it comes to actually learn these expressions and whether you should say whether listo means smart or ready, or in actual fact, it means both, right? Really, what you have to do as you go forward is just to pay attention to which to which verb it takes. So if you hear someone say listo, it's not enough. You need to think, okay, did they say es listo or did they say está listo? So you almost have to kind of learn them as a set. Okay. Now, obviously, it takes time to learn all of the different words and how their meanings change. But hopefully, after this class, you won't be able to ignore the verb anymore. You won't be able to ignore whether it's ser or estar, because you now have this appreciation of just how important it is. Okay. Cool. Everybody's saying it makes sense. Good stuff. So, in this first part, we've covered the clear cases. We've talked about how the essential nature of ser and estar is one of truth and permanence, or temporary, fleeting unreliability, depending on which it is. Okay? Any questions so clear, or are you prepared to sort of nod your head and move on at this point? Jackie asks if someone is always bored. Good question. Well, Jackie, they might always be bored, but is that part of their essential character, really? Or is it just the state that they're in? Remember, a state can be very long. I mean, you might be bored for a whole year, but it still doesn't reflect your temporary, your actual genuine character. It just says the sort of state that you're in. Okay? Does that make sense? So remember, a state can be very long whilst all being temporary. Okay, everyone's saying move on. Good. I want to, at this stage, drop a couple of little rules in that are important for you to remember, because although I've been saying we don't need rules, there are two exceptions which are important to point out, because otherwise you're still going to have questions about them. I'm just going to point out what they are, and then we'll move on. So two quick things to remember with estar. When you're talking about location or adverbs, you're always going to use estar. Okay, that's just something you have to remember. So, for example, if you want to say that the bank is in the center of town, we're talking about the location of the bank. And so we're going to say el banco está en el centro. So whenever we're talking about location, we use estar. Similarly, whenever we're using adverbs or adverbial phrases, for those of you who know your grammar, we're also going to use estar. It's for that reason that we say está bien, that phrase that I'm sure you know. Okay? So there are more rules than this, but they're mostly obvious now that you know what I've taught you about ser and estar. These are the two that you just have to remember, because they will wonder why that's the case, and they may seem counterintuitive. These two, they're kind of outliers, and you just have to remember why they are. Liz said, if someone's always bored, I think they're a boring person. Well, yeah, Liz, I mean, fair point. But just remember that when you're speaking, you choose whether to use ser and estar. So in that case, Liz, if you think that, then you can choose to say ser. You can say, él es muy aburrido. It's up to you. All right, so two quick rules for you to remember. And with that, we're going to take things up a notch. So at this stage, now in this at this part of the class, we are moving on to a very specific case now, okay? And I'm going to call it a tricky case. So I'm going to show you a sentence in English, and I'd like you to look at it, please. The house was abandoned. Have a look at this sentence and see if you can identify for me the verb to be in this sentence. Okay, hopefully you've all got was there. And now I want you to look at the word abandoned. Now, abandoned is what we call a past participle. A past participle. Can you see how if you take the verb to abandon, When we put it in the past tense, it becomes. So this is what we call the past participle. And in this section, we're going to be talking about how to use the verb to be with the past participle. And if you're not sure what I mean by past participle, or if you're not following me, don't worry. We're going to look at tons of examples coming up. Okay? So the question is, in this section, how do you choose ser or estar with a past participle? Now, let's go through this step by step. When you think about this sentence, the house was abandoned, there are two possible meanings. Go ahead and type it in. See if you can differentiate for me the two possible meanings of this phrase, the house was abandoned. Now, I admit they are fine shades of meaning, but that's what we're dealing with here now, because you guys are getting more advanced in Spanish. And so we're dealing with these fine shades, because in English it's a fine shade of meaning, in Spanish it's not. Okay, so what are the two different shades of meaning here for this sentence? Okay, Robert, good guess, but that's not actually the case. Okay, so Samantha says someone left the house and abandoned it. That's right. And then Olivia said it was abandoned, and now it's not. So, okay, yeah, Samantha says it's the state of the house. Okay, yeah, so you're getting closer. So let's have a look at this in more detail. So, first of all, the house was abandoned. In this case, it's the state of the house. You went for a walk and you found the house like that. You came across it one day, and it was in an abandoned state. Now, question for you. Was it always abandoned? Was it always an abandoned house? Will it be abandoned forever? If you came back in a few years' time, would it still be abandoned? Okay, everybody's saying no. Good. So for that reason, we're going to call this an abandoned state. It's the state it's in. Now, as someone mentioned in the last part, it might be a long time. It might be 5, 10, 15 years, but it's a temporary state that the house is in. Now, on the other hand, in the second part, the house was abandoned. It was fled. Somebody actually left the house one day, and they made the house be abandoned, if you like. Okay, so in this case, abandoned is something that somebody did to the house. And the emphasis is on action, movement, and causality. The key word here is causality. Can you see the difference between those two? Can you see how, in the first case, when we found the house, it was abandoned. It's simply the state it was in. We don't know how long it's been like that for, or how long it will remain like that. But in the second case, we're talking about causality, something that has been done to the house. Now, in English, when you look at these two sentences, I'm having to go to some lengths to explain exactly what's going on, right? However, in Spanish, it will be clear from the verb. This is where linguistics gets so interesting, because in Spanish, all you've got to do is use a certain verb, and we immediately know which is which. Okay? So yeah, you guys are getting it right. So number one would be estaba, and number two would be fue. Exactly. But before we get into the detail of the Spanish, I want to just give you another example, which is this. The door was closed. Go ahead and let me know, what are the two meanings here of the door was closed? Well, this is a bit clearer, this one, isn't it? It could just be the state. You know, when I found this door, it was closed. Was it always closed? Will it be closed forever? Unlikely. It's just the state it was in. On the other hand, the other meaning is this. The door was closed by somebody. And we're back in the territory of causality here. Someone did something to that door. The door was closed by somebody. And for those of you who are grammar nerds like me, what we've actually got here is a passive construction. Okay, this is actually the verb to close, and it's a passive construction saying the door was closed by somebody. Whereas in the first one, we're just describing the state. So using what you know about ser and estar, now, which one do you think matches with which? Let me know. So the first one, la puerta. Go ahead and write in your answers in order using fue or estaba. First of all, the door was closed. It's just the state I found it in. And secondly, the door was closed by somebody else. Have a think. Go in and write in your two answers in order. And I'd like to check and see how you're doing. It's funny to see some of you having problems with autocorrect on your on your keyboard. Yeah, okay, you're all getting this right, guys. Good job. So, la puerta estaba cerrada. We can't really. Well, it's a temporary state, right? It's not the essence of it whatsoever. And in the second case, la puerta fue cerrada. And here we're using the verb ser. By using fue, we're really emphasizing the fact of causality and action, the fact that something has actually been done to the door. I'm using this little guy here to describe causality. Okay. Okay, you're mostly right there, guys. A couple still not quite right, but hopefully in the next examples that will make sense. Let me give you another example here. The footballer was retired. Now, just think quickly to yourself about the two meanings. Don't worry about typing it in, but just think about the two meanings, potential meanings of this. The footballer was retired. So the first one could simply be that the guy was retired. He's retired. He wasn't working anymore. He'd quit. Simple, right? This is the normal meaning of retired when we describe somebody. On the other hand, it could be like this. We could be talking about the statue of a footballer, and he was retired. He was taken out of action physically. Or it could be maybe that the footballer was told to retire. He was no good anymore. He'd lost his skills, and he was told to retire from the game. So hopefully by now, we'll go ahead and type it in, fue or estaba, for these two. Type them in order, please. Which is which? Again, in example number one, the footballer's retired. He doesn't work anymore. And in the second example, he was forcibly retired. They made him retire. Okay. Okay, you're mostly getting it right, guys. A couple are getting it wrong. This is the correct answer. Remember that when he is retired, it's just a state he's in. He wasn't always retired. In the future, when he sadly passes away, he will no longer be retired. It's a temporary state. So for that reason, we say estaba. We're just describing a temporary state. But when we say fue, it's because something was done to him. It's causality. That's our passive construction there, for those of you who are interested. So remember, even though he might be retired for 20, 30 years or more, it's not his true nature, is it? It's just a temporary state that he's in, albeit a very long one. So Robert says, fue if he was fired from the team. Exactly, Robert. So he's been playing for many years, but the coaches are sitting around and they're saying, "Oh, this guy's really past his prime. He's just not what he was used to be. I think we need to retire him." Do you see? So we need to retire this guy from the sport. Actively, we're talking about we are going to do it to him. Then you're going to say fue retirado. Can you see how different that is from actually saying, commenting on his state and saying he is retired now? Excuse me. Okay, Wayne is asking why is it estaba instead of estuvo. Wayne is a good question, but we're not going to get into that because that's really a question of the past tenses. So I'm not going to get into that now because it's going to take us way off course. Okay, if you got it wrong, don't worry. We're going to look at one more example, and you can always go back and look at this again later. And also, if you don't get this right first time, don't worry, guys. It's not meant to be easy. It is hard. All right, then. So the car was broken. What are the two meanings? Well, it is, of course, that the car was broken when I found it. That's the state it was in. We don't know how long it had been broken. It certainly wasn't always broken. At one point, it was a nice, shiny new car. But when I found it, for whatever reason, it was in a broken state. Now, the other meaning was that somebody actually broke the car. They came up with a crowbar and they smashed the car. They broke it. Or maybe they crashed it into something. Can you see the two meanings there? So, fue or estaba. Go ahead and type it in. Remember, one is talking about a state, the other is talking about causality. Go ahead and type in which is which. For each one, is it el coche fue roto or estaba roto? Go ahead and type it in. Type the two verbs in order, please. First number one, second number two. Okay, 100% this time, guys. Good job. I think it's seeming looking clear now. Is that clear to you? Is it making sense? Good job, Nancy. Good job, Amy. Good job, Jennifer. Yep. All right, then. Everybody's getting it right. Good job. Well, it looks like my explanations are working then. Fantastic. Peter says, claro. Good, good, good. All right, then. There we go. Estaba and fue. Remember, with fue, we're talking about causality. All right, then. Are you ready for a little test? Let's see how well you've really understood this. I'm going to give you 5 sentences here. And don't answer yet because I have to explain the context. I have to explain to you the context, right? And I want you're going to type in 5 verbs. In each case, is it fue or is it estaba? So, number 1, the house was abandoned last year. So what happened in this case was the house was abandoned by the owners in June last year. They just go ahead and type in what do you think the answer is. I think we'll do it one by one. It's probably better. So remember, the house was abandoned by the family last year. They didn't like it anymore. They just packed their bags and they left. Yeah, remember that. Okay, so here, good job. Most of you are getting this right, guys. We're talking about causality. It's not the state of the house. They just they did this to the house. They abandoned it. They went. So it's fue. Okay, next one. The door was opened by the owner at 9 o'clock sharp. So at 9 o'clock in the morning, the owner, he went down to the shop and he put his hand on the door handle and he opened the door. Was it fue abierta or estaba abierta? The owner, he went down to the shop and he opened the door himself at 9 o'clock. probably be a help if you put the number in there as well, so I can see which one you're referring to. So if you're talking about number 2, stick a 2 in there as well, so I can see which one you're talking about. Okay, mostly right there, guys. Yeah, the answer is fue abierta a las 9. Because remember, it's causality again. It's causality. The owner, he opened the door. He caused that door to be open himself. It's not. We're not talking about the state of the door. We're talking about what he did to it. So for that reason, it's fue, and most of you guys are getting that right. Good job. Okay, next one, number 3. I came across a car on the road yesterday, and I was looking around the car. I was looking at what kind of condition it was in, but when I saw the car, the door was closed. It wasn't open. The door was closed. Was closed shut. I didn't touch it because that's how I found it. It's just the way it was when I found it. So la puerta del coche fue cerrada o estaba cerrada. Please put a number 3 by that if you could. Wonderful. 100% there, guys. Good. It's the state that the door was in when we found it, right? Because we're not talking about anyone did it. We're just saying, look, when I found it, hands up, when I found it, it was closed. It's just the condition it was in. So we say estaba. Good job. Okay, you're gonna like these last two. These last two are fun. So number 4, I was married to Julia for 10 years. I was married to Julia for 10 years. That's what I'm going to say about that. Note use of the word was. Okay, if I say I was married, am I still married now? Probably not. So I was married to Julia for 10 years. Wonderful. Okay, 99% correct there, guys. The answer is estaba casado con Julia durante 10 años. The reason being because being married is not a natural state, is it? Might feel like it, but actually it's a temporary state because you weren't born married. Your essence is not a married person. It's something that you enter into, albeit for a very long period of time, hopefully. But still, it's a temporary thing. It may not have been like that before and after. So for that reason, it estaba. Linda, yes, 4 and 5 need context. So I'm trying to give you the context you need without giving it away too much. Let's try with the last one. And hopefully the last one will serve to show you the difference between the two. Okay, so the last one is, I was forcibly married to Julia in an arranged marriage. My parents told me, you have to marry Julia. We've chosen for you. Okay, everybody's getting it right now. So you see the difference? You see what the difference is there? Estaba casado con Julia. I was married to her for some time, right? Maybe 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, don't know. But it was a state. But number 5, we're talking about causality. And we think someone made me do it. And so because of that, we have to use fue casado con Julia. No quería, pero bueno, era lo que era. Oh yeah, some of you are right there. If I'm talking about me, myself, it should be fui, not fue. Sorry about that. Some of you guys are, Ronald, Joan, you've beat me to it there. Okay, so Suzanne's saying, what about I was married to Julia last Friday? You probably just use the verb. Suzanne, you say, me casé con Julia el viernes pasado. Okay. So, how are you feeling, guys? David said only had 1 wrong. Hey, David, that means you got 80% right. And that's what we're aiming for, right? So how are you feeling about this? We've covered clear and we've covered tricky. Up to now, you've learned the rules, or the true essence, I guess. You've learned that el es fuerte is talking about the true nature of something. You've learned that estar is a temporary state. You've learned that you can use fue or estaba to talk about state or causality. That's the stuff that we've covered so far. It's pretty interesting, right? How the verbs can mean all these different things. And you guys have done some great work. Like most of you are getting it spot on now, or at least kind of 80% of the way, which is great because that's what I wanted. But right now, in the last section, we're entering the territory of kind of native speaker Twilight Zone stuff, okay? This is where we start to break the rules that we've been learning. But we're going to break the rules now, but we're going to do it having developed a good understanding of the true nature of these verbs. So what do you think? Do you want the last section? Are you ready for it? Or would you prefer to call it there? Rachel says, great. Suppose you will always know the context of your sentence before saying or writing it. Yeah, Rachel, exactly. That's the thing. I'm testing you here. But actually, remember when you're speaking, you're the one that chooses these verbs. So you're in control, right? Okay. Samantha says, yes. David says, let's have a go. Yeah, and David, that's what I'm asking. What I'm trying to do here is plant these seeds in your mind so that as you go off and you read Spanish and you live Spanish, then you're now super aware of what you're looking at. All right? So, Annalise says, go ahead. So let's do it. All right, then. So let me ask you a question, guys. What do you think about learning ser and estar? Is it difficult? What do you think? Is it difficult or easy? I think it's difficult. What do you reckon? It's quite tricky, right? How do you say that in Spanish? How do you say it's difficult in Spanish? Do you say es difícil or está difícil? What do you think? Kate says it was difficult, but it's easier now. Good stuff. Okay, so we've got a mix of replies here. We've got a mix of es and está. Samantha says depende, cierto. Okay, now bear with me here. It's where it starts to get tricky. Now, if what we're saying is that ser and estar, or learning the difference between ser and estar, is inherently hard, a difficult subject matter, then we're going to use ser. Okay? Because the impression we want to give here is that we are talking about an inherently difficult subject matter. It never used to be easy. It's just that the nature of this grammar problem is that it's difficult. Okay, but there's more on this later. So if you wrote down está difícil, don't worry because we're going to come back to that. Now, similarly, do you remember our friend from part 1, Carlos? He's very handsome, right? He's a really handsome guy. So how would you say that? Would you say es guapo or está guapo? As you look at him, he's just an inherently handsome guy. He was probably a good-looking kid. He's probably a bit like Roger Moore, like through his whole life, he's just going to be a good-looking guy. So, what is it going to be? ¿Es guapo or está guapo? Yeah, you're all getting it right now. Yeah, exactly. We'd say es guapo. All right? So what this has shown me, guys, is that you have understood. Good job. You've understood what we've been talking about. Because being handsome is part of his essence, right? So in both, if we want to say that something is difficult, es difícil, and that this guy is handsome, es guapo, we are reflecting a clear characteristic of the thing that we're talking about, right? But you know that because you've learned that already and you've been great students and you've got the answers almost entirely right. But however, in Spanish, just like with the subjunctive and other tenses as well, you can play with verbs to have some fun, to make the point that you're talking about. All right? You want to learn to have a bit of fun with ser and estar? Does that sound good? Okay. So let's look at these examples from a different angle. Let's say that we're sitting down having a coffee in a restaurant somewhere, and I'm me and you were sitting down and I'm explaining ser and estar to you for the first time. You are out of your depth. You're bowled over by how hard it is. You're despairing. You're like, oh, this is impossible. I'm never going to learn this. And you reach a kind of breaking point and you lean back and you say, it's so hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. Now, in this situation, you're actually going to say, está difícil. That's what you're going to say. Wow, ser y estar. Está difícil. Está muy difícil. Why? Well, yes, it's true that ser and estar are inherently hard. We know that. That's why in the last slide, we saw how we would say es difícil when we are describing ser and estar. But what's different in this case is that you're giving a personal reaction. You're reacting to something. It could be other things too. It could be an opinion. It could be a personal impression. Maybe you want to have some kind of emphasis. Or maybe you want to say it's harder than I thought. You want to compare it to something else. Something that you're doing to add a bit of character and personality and personalize the point that you're trying to make. So you are reacting to the situation. And the fact that it's your reaction makes it inherently unreliable and temporary. You're just like reacting, coming like with the wind, reacting to the blows that are coming at you. And because it's so subjective, and you're not talking about the true essence, because you're just reacting to it yourself, you can't possibly use ser, because that's a different thing. In that case, you're going to choose to use estar, because you want to make the point that it's what you're thinking right now, and it's what you're feeling right now. So you can choose to use estar rather than ser if you want to make the point that you are reacting personally to something. Okay? Is that clear? Now let's have a look at the second example. We know that Carlos is inherently handsome, right? And we know that we can say, if you're describing his true nature, you can say to your friends, see, Carlos es guapo, he's good looking. That's why everybody likes him, or something like that. But let's imagine a different situation. You're in a cafe, again, having some drinks, chatting with some friends. You turn around, and in walks Carlos, who you're seeing for the first time. You've never seen him before. Your reaction is a very good one. You find him pretty attractive, and you turn around to your friend and you say, wow. What do you say? Do you say, es guapo or está guapo? Mira, Carlos, es guapo, or mira, Carlos, está guapo. What do you say? So Connie says, impression or opinion, está. Lee says, está guapo, with a couple of exclamation marks. Yes, exactly. Exactly. You got it, guys. Good job. So in that situation, because you're reacting to something, you're giving a personal impression, you're going to say, está guapo. Okay, can you see the difference? It's tricky, right? But again, what I want you to understand here is actually you can play with these verbs. And this is where you really get to reach the advanced, nuanced stages of Spanish, when you actually know how to play with these verbs to give the impression that you want. Okay. David from Totana Murcia says está, and he is correct. Good one, David. All right. So let me give you a few more examples to see how far you've come. Last part, this is the last part, and we're going to just see how much of this you've understood. So in the first case, we're talking about someone who's tall, alto. And this relates to one of the questions that was asked earlier on. I forget who asked it, but someone asked, why do we say está alto, but es fuerte? I think that was the question. So, number one, you're talking to colleagues, deciding, and you're talking about you've got an event coming up, and you're deciding, okay, well, who should give a speech at this event? We need someone to stand up and give a speech, and you decide it should be Mark, because Mark is very tall. So you say, yeah, let's ask Mark to give the speech. He's a tall guy. Let's choose Mark. He's tall. Number one, es or está. Go ahead and type it in. And please write the number as well for me so I can see. So we're going to choose Mark because he is tall, and so he would be the best choice. Everybody is saying es alto, and you're correct. Fantastic. It's his true nature, right? We're choosing him because he is a physically tall person. Good job. Okay, number two. It's the day of the event. Mark turns up at the event. He walks in. Remember, he's a very tall guy. And a little child sees him, and he turns around and he whispers to his mum, wow, he is really tall. He's tall. Look at that guy. He's tall. Does the child say es alto or está alto? What does he say? Number two, go ahead and type it in. Perfect. 100%, guys. Good job. You see the difference now? Okay. Number three. These last two are a little bit tricky. I'm just going to really push the boundaries on this one. So number three. Your husband or wife, let's imagine you're at home and your husband or your wife invites a family friend round for dinner. Okay, so it's a friend of yours, but you haven't seen him. You've never met him before, actually. Your husband or your wife told you that he's the same age as us. I'm going to invite a friend around for dinner. He's the same age as us. You'll get on. But when he turns up, he looks a lot older than you thought. He must be like 10, 20 years older than you. So you turn to your husband or your wife and you say, wow, ¿es viejo o está viejo? What do you say? Guys, I'm so pleased. You're getting it all 100%. Exactly, está viejo. Because although it's true that he is maybe an old person, so es viejo, you're expressing surprise and opinion, and so that's why you're saying está viejo. Your personal reaction. Okay, and lastly, this one's a bit tricky. You are watching a movie at home or in the cinema. You get to the end of the movie, and truth be told, you didn't enjoy it very much. It wasn't really your cup of tea. But you did think that it was a well-made film. Technically, it was well put together. You could appreciate the artistic qualities of the film. You appreciate it for what it is. So you turn to your friend and you say, es buena or está buena. Number four, what do you think? Okay, we're getting more of a mix here. And I think the reason we're getting a mix is because you could very well say está buena. If you say está buena, you are giving your commentary on it, saying, oh, I enjoyed this film. It's a good film. However, what you're really trying to do here is make the point that the film is well made. And as Megan says, although your opinion is that it's a good film, what you actually are commenting on, you're choosing to use the verb said because you want to make the point that you explicitly want to make the point that it is technically well made and it's not just your opinion that it's a good film. Okay, so for that reason, you would say es buena. But if you didn't say, if you got that, if you said está, don't worry, it's perfectly fine. In the vast majority of cases, you would say está buena. Okay, but what I want to do with this last example is just kind of show you how, if you wish to play with the verb and make the point that actually I didn't enjoy it, but it was well made. The inherent quality of this film is that it's a good film. You could choose to say es buena. Does that make sense? Megan asks, so it's an objective commentary on the style of the film instead of how you thought it was. Exactly. You've put it much better than I could have done, Megan. She says, it's an objective commentary on the style, the essence of the film, if you like, instead of how you thought, instead of your personal impression of what it was like. Okay, that's a great contribution, Megan. Thank you very much. All right then, so we've seen the clear part of this. We've seen how ser estar can mean the inherent qualities or characteristics, or it can mean a temporary state. We've looked at the tricky side of it, where we see how we can use the verb ser to talk about causality. And then we've seen the tough side of it, when you can actually break the rules to say, to give your own personal impression or reaction. So my aim for this class, guys, was that you will gain a native-like understanding of the difference between ser and estar in Spanish, such that you can make a confident choice about which to use in a variety of situations. So what do you think? Have I, you be the judge. I want to comment on this. I want you to be the judge whether or not this class has achieved that aim or not. I hope it has. Again, you might feel a little bit overwhelmed at this point, but really, hopefully now you're not going to be able to ever see ser and estar again without thinking about what we talked about today. Okay, Liz says it's mission complete on my part. Well, that's fantastic. I'm very pleased about that. It's not at all easier. It takes me a very long time to prepare these classes, but I hope that it pays off. So this takes time, guys, because of the gray areas. Okay, as you can see, there's a lot of subjective stuff there, and doing this accurately in speaking takes even longer, because as we saw earlier in English, we don't need a distinction between the two verbs, right? So I hope this class has been useful for you. I'd love to take questions. So I'd like to stay on and answer your questions for as long as it takes. I don't want you to leave with questions still. My tip for you as you go out and keep studying Spanish is to really give your full attention to ser and estar as you're going. And simply carry on listening and reading and speaking to Spanish, and gradually it will filter through into your Spanish over the coming months. What I've aimed to do here is raise the awareness of the really important qualities, such that now you can really teach yourself just by observing. So there we go. The inspiration from this class, this is the third class we've done in this series, actually. And these lessons come from a private community that I run called the Fluent Spanish Academy. And I'd like to take a second to tell you about that now, because if you enjoyed today's class and you'd like more of the same on topics like the subjunctive and the past tenses and things like that, and it may very well be for you. So I'll tell you quickly about this, and then we'll stay on for questions at the end. So it's called the Fluent Spanish Academy, and it's a private community that I run myself at an intermediate level of Spanish, with the aim of helping you break through and become fluent. We're usually closed. We usually don't accept new members. It's only periodically, but the good news is that starting today, I'd like to open enrollment especially for you guys who are here on the call. And I prepared some amazing bonuses, especially for you guys, since you are here watching this class and you're still here at the end. So I know how keen you are. There's a ton of stuff inside the Academy, but there are a few major things that you get as an Academy member. And that is these three. So the first is coaching and guidance from me personally, basically more of the same, more of what you've got here today, so that you learn the right way. You get a friendly and supportive community of Spanish learners so that you stay motivated. For many people, that's a big deal. And then thirdly, you get tailor-made study material so that you can study what I call the whole language, so that you learn fast and effectively with world-class materials that are designed for you. So with the first one, the coaching and the guidance, I mean, you've got the best possible flavor of it today, really, the kind of things that we teach in the academy. But with all the activity and the training inside the community, I'm there every day guiding you, making sure that you know what you're doing, whether it's answering your questions in the Facebook group or giving you detailed feedback on videos you've uploaded of you speaking Spanish. I'm there for you, and that's what I do, is what I want. So whenever you have a question, whatever you get stuck on, whatever you want to work on, you can get answers right away from me and also from the other more experienced Spanish learners in the community, so that you can concentrate on studying to become fluent in Spanish rather than getting stuck. As part of the community, you also get live training every month, much like this one, where I teach you how to study better, give you something clear to focus on for the month. So we have lots of challenges on things like the past tense and the subjunctive and things like that. And then what follows these live trainings is a 30-day challenge in the Facebook community, where I then provide you with practice materials every day to practice that specific thing. So it's really, really cool. Inside the academy, this is number 2, you're joining a huge community of other people just like you around the world who are dedicated to becoming fluent in Spanish. You keep each other motivated, you answer questions, you hold yourself accountable to your study plans. We even have people forming local Spanish meetup groups and giving movie recommendations and things like that, which is very nice. Within the community, what you'll get is you'll really feel the amazing power of having other people around to support you and encourage you, and feel more motivated to study than you ever have before, because that's what community does. And you know what happens when you get motivated, right? So the final thing, part 3, is the tailor-made materials. So just with the guidance from me and the community as well, you've already got a very powerful environment to improve your Spanish. But the main thing about the academy is actually a huge resource of world-class study materials that I've created personally, aimed specifically at helping you through the intermediate plateau, as it's known. So you have everything you need to study Spanish each week. So let me show you actually inside the members area. This is what it looks like in here. This is inside the Fluent Spanish Academy members area. And you have lots of stuff here. You've got this menu, and on the side with all the different materials and training components. The first thing you do when you join the academy is you take this starter course, which is a course that I've written specifically to help you through the intermediate plateau, because most people get stuck at the intermediate level. So it's super important that you understand why you get stuck around the intermediate level and exactly what to do to break through. So I show you how to break through the intermediate plateau, and I give you study routines and show you how to use different materials to actually break through. And this is really the most important thing. And it's what you do when you first join the academy. Next, we have the weekly classes. I call them Fluent Spanish classes. And this is with me and Angela, who is my colleague in the academy. She's a native Spanish speaker. And then what we do is every week we release an audio lesson for you, which is me and Angela discussing a certain aspect of Spanish. So for example, here, it's an audio lesson where we teach you how to react to different information. And here we focus on real lifelike Spanish that you actually hear in the street and you actually use. It's not textbook stuff. It's real daily Spanish. And many people tell me that they listen to these lessons and they go out into the street and they hear someone using it straight away. So they're highly practical, and you get a new one of these audio lessons every week, so you can take them with you and listen to them wherever you are, at home, in the gym, in the car, on the beach. The next part is the listening comprehension training. And this exists to help you understand fast spoken Spanish. As you know, Spanish can be very fast when it's spoken. And the way that you learn to understand spoken Spanish is by listening to real conversations with transcripts. And so what we have here is a huge library of audio recordings of native speakers speaking Spanish on different common topics. And we have the complete transcripts, word for word, of everything that's said, so that you can listen and then follow along with the text. And if you do that every day, you will find your listening comprehension skills going through the roof, because what you do is you start to connect what's said, what you hear, with the actual words. And so this is the library of material to help you improve your listening comprehension. The next part is my favorite part. It's the short stories. You get a large library of short stories in Spanish so that you can practice reading. But more than that, every short story is written using a particular grammar point. So this particular story you see here on the screen, which is called Líder, was written specifically to help you practice the subjunctive. So what you do is you sit down and you read the story. You get lots of examples of the subjunctive, so you get to get exposure to it. You have the audio, so you then listen to the audio at the same time, so you can help improve your listening. And then what you do is you have these exercises where you have to reconstruct the story using the verbs in the subjunctive like that. And so it's a wonderful natural way to practice Spanish by doing something that you enjoy, which is reading and reading interesting stories in Spanish that are short enough to be manageable. We have a bunch of stories in there as well on, among other things, ser and estar, so that you can continue your learning from today straight away. And then lastly, we have the live training that I mentioned earlier. This is a live training session every month, much like this, where we focus on different things. In this one that you can see here on the screen, I teach you how to improve your memory so that you can remember vocabulary more easily. And like I said, they're linked to the monthly challenges. So coming up at some point, I'm not sure exactly when it is, but we'll be having a monthly challenge for ser and estar, so that you can actually work on practicing this particular grammar point every day with materials that I provide. We've got a lot of other stuff like movie recommendations and things like that, but that's the main bulk of what it is. It is essentially everything you need to become fluent in Spanish the fast way in one place. And needless to say, I'm extremely proud of what we've created here in the Academy. It's been super successful. And in fact, many people who join us are pretty much on the point of giving up, actually, or have had a hard time learning Spanish. And for many people, this is kind of the last throw of the dice for them. And in every case, it's the community, the motivation that you get from that community, the materials and the expertise that you get in the Academy that makes such a difference and helps people get their results. Mike, for example, said, "I'm very impressed with your site. I love getting weekly lessons and having digestible chunks of information and audio easily available. Truly excellent materials here, Olly." That's Mike from Washington. So if you find that you suffer from these problems, if you freeze up when you speak because you don't know how to reply, if you can't understand natural Spanish spoken by real people or in groups because you don't practice listening in the right way, if you struggle to speak with accurate grammar because you haven't learned grammar the natural way, if you're frustrated by a lack of expression in Spanish because you're not learning the way people really speak, if you can relate to any of this stuff, then the Academy is very much for you. Now, I'm sure you're wondering about the price of membership, and obviously this model is a little bit different from hiring a Spanish teacher by the hour, which I'm sure you've done in the past. If you're an independent learner, then in fact, it's far more valuable in the Academy because what you have is full 24/7 access to everything that we have. Now, if you do take private Spanish lessons, say twice a week, that easily adds up to around $300 or $400 a month, which can be over $5,000 a year. It's a lot of money that you spend on lessons. And that's why the Fluent Spanish Academy is really unbeatable value at the price it is, and why I've priced it at the way it is. So you have two options in the Academy. You have a monthly membership and an annual membership. You can join monthly and it's $35 a month, or you can take an annual membership and you get 3 months free. And there's also a lot of really fantastic bonuses that I'm adding, especially for the people who are here for you, as you're here on this call, on this class right now. It's a completely transparent system, so there are no contracts. You can cancel at any time. So it's a very clear and fair policy. The price for the Academy, we've been running for almost a year now. The price will almost certainly go up in the future, but this price here, if you join, then this price is guaranteed for life, for as long as you remain a member. And there are also, like I said, some fantastic bonuses that I've decided to throw in just today that I'll tell you about in a minute. And they are especially if you take the annual option. But just to put this in context for a second, if you do take an annual membership at the Academy, it works out at 86 cents a day, which is about 69p for those of you in the UK. So my question to you really is, for 86 cents a day, is this not worth a shot? If you, no pun intended with the with the Starbucks, if you think that this is the kind of thing that will help you, hopefully this is at a level that is worth a shot. And one of the things that people say to me most often is, well, I've been tempted by the Academy for ages, but I've never actually taken the plunge. And I understand that. And here's the thing, with language learning, and I know because I've learned 8 languages myself and I've seen how it works, time is both your enemy and your friend. So the worst thing that you can do is to let time pass without studying hard, because it's almost as if your brain muscles kind of slip backwards in a way. But by contrast, just by keeping it up and doing the right things on a daily basis, time does so much of the work for you. And so that's why I decided to add a little incentive for you if you would like to take an annual membership today, because I respect that commitment. It's that kind of commitment that will get you real results in your Spanish. So these are the bonuses that are available for you if you decide to take an annual membership today. They're also limited to the first 10 people, and you'll understand why in just a second. So just to be clear, these bonuses are for annual members, and they are limited to the first 10 people only. And the first bonus you're going to get is a 30-day study pack for mastering ser versus estar, how to choose between the two. With this, what you will do is you're going to read a simple story in Spanish, and you are going to go through and you're going to decide in each case, wherever you see the blanks, which verb, ser or estar, you should use. So you're going to enjoy reading the story itself whilst also practicing your verbs, so that you can really gain a natural understanding of how to use these verbs in a controlled way. And by doing it every day, that's how you really make the progress. The second bonus for annual members is you're going to get a copy of all 3 of my Spanish short story books. There are 2 volumes for beginners and 1 for intermediate learners, so you can have that gradual progression through. And these are international bestsellers, these books. I've sold hundreds of thousands of copies, and they are super popular. You get all 3 digital versions of these books. I'll send you the PDF and the Kindle file as well, so you can read on your Kindle if you prefer. And I'm also going to send you the audiobooks, so that you can read the stories and listen along. And the value of if you were to buy all these separately, these are actually worth almost $100 just by themselves. So these 3 short story books you get, so you can really immerse yourself in natural Spanish that is comprehensible and not too difficult, so you can actually enjoy reading and improve that way. Now, the last bonus that I'm going to offer for annual members is also for the same reason that I'm only able to offer this bonus pack to the first 10 people, which is that you're going to get a free consultation call with me as well. So we're going to get on Skype, and we're going to chat about you and your Spanish, and whatever it is that's holding you back in your Spanish, whatever it is that you're struggling with, we're going to chat one-on-one, just you and me, about that, and I'm going to help you work through it and hopefully show you the way forward so that you can get over whatever block you're experiencing and can move well on the way to becoming fluent in Spanish. You can use this anytime within the 12 months as well, so you don't have to take it straight away. Most people who take this actually wait a while before they take the call, but it's there for you whenever you want it. And these calls, I never take consultation calls for any less than $250, so it's an extremely valuable bonus right there. This whole bonus package is fantastic, and it's the first time I've offered this actually, so it's a good offer today. So just a quick reminder of everything you're going to get in the Academy. It's the live training with me every month, the community forums, it's the weekly fluent Spanish classes, it's the listening comprehension training, it's the short stories, and this is for you whatever variety of Spanish you're learning, because we cover lots of different dialects and accents. And also, as you get more advanced in Spanish, really the kind of language that you learn is universal, and it's not country or dialect specific. Okay, so once again, these are the different options. You can join monthly if you like, and it's $35 a month, or you can take an annual membership, and it's $315 for the year, so you get 3 months free, and you also get this amazing bonus pack that's worth more than the annual membership itself. The Serenity Style Study Pack, the 3 short storybooks with the audio, and the free consultation call with me. Remember, there are no contracts. You can cancel anytime. And if you'd like to join, remember, it is limited to the first 10 people. There should be a button that's coming up on your screen now, so you can click that button, and that will take you to a place where you can enroll. Let me know if you have any questions or problems about that. And if that doesn't work for you, the other thing you can do is you can open up a new browser window or a new tab, and you can go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com, which is my website, /class offer, which is a private link to you on this class. So you can either click the button on the screen or go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com /class offer. So there we go. We'll get to questions in just a second. What's it worth to you to be speaking Spanish, fluent Spanish in the near future? Don't do this alone. Let me help you. Come and join the community. Keep yourself motivated. This here, I've worked very, very hard to create everything that you need to break through the intermediate plateau in Spanish and become fluent without any more stress or worry about whether you are actually doing the right thing. So there we go. If you'd like to enroll, you can click the button on the screen, or you can go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com /class offer. Remember, these bonuses are only available for the first 10 people who enroll. Judy from the USA said, she wrote in to say, I wanted you to know that I'm thrilled with the Fluent Spanish Academy. I love the grammar training. The forums are a great place for sharing information, and working with Angela is a dream. Judy's fantastic. Robert also said recently in the Facebook group, 16 months ago, I could only speak with somebody for 30 seconds in Spanish, but thanks to Olly, I can now have a conversation for an hour plus in Spanish. Robert got really fantastic results. So if you feel that your vocabulary is okay, but you kind of lack precision, maybe you overuse the same words all the time, if you struggle to understand when you're reading, if you feel like you're losing your motivation, if you can't find the material that's just right for you, or even if you've begun to doubt whether you're ever capable of speaking Spanish fluently, the Fluent Spanish Academy is the solution that I've put together for you and that will help you get where you want to get. Okay, so those are the options again. If you have any questions, then you can begin to type those in now, because I'll be answering all of your questions before we end. And you can just type those in the chat box, and what I'll do is I'll go through all of the questions, and I'll make sure that we get through all of them before we end. Once again, this offer to enroll in the Academy is only valid now during the class. It's not available later, and the bonuses, they are only available for the first 10 people who take the annual membership. So I just want to be very, very clear about that. I'll just take a swig of water here, as I've been talking for an hour and a half, and then I'll get right into your questions, and I'll answer as many of them as I can. And just so that you know, I mean, I've been speaking Spanish for a long time now, but ser estar, it still trips me up from time to time. You know, it's one of those things that does take time to master. But when you do, when you start able to kind of play with those verbs, it's a really fantastic thing. All right. So, a couple of questions. Sarah asks, what level does the Intermediate Academy relate to on the European Framework of Reference? So, Sarah, what I'd say is that it's broadly about B1, but the thing is that we have members who are everywhere from A2 to B2. If you're A1 like a beginner, it's not really suitable for you. But if you are anywhere from A2 upwards, then it's for you, because what happens, you tend to use the material in slightly different ways. So what happens is, if you are towards the higher end, kind of B1, B2, then what you'll start to do is you will be using a lot of the authentic material that we have in there, so the listening comprehension training, the short stories, the dialogues, and things like that, and you'll just be kind of you'll be just immersing yourself in that, and you'll be learning in a more natural way. For people who are at a lower level, around the A2, then you'll be studying with it more intensively. So I would say it's not for you if you are at a kind of A1 type level, but anywhere from A2 to B1, you will get value from it, because what happens is that it's a combination of like the materials and the community and the help from me and all of that. Hopefully that answers your question, but feel free to come back if anything there is clear. Rennie says, what about Spanish for business? Rennie, it's not something I do right now, I'm afraid. But maybe something for the future, perhaps. Linda says, how does payment work from the US? Linda, it works, it's the same wherever you are. So whether you're in the US or it works in the same way. Whether you, because the currency is in US dollars, but whatever card you use in whatever country, or your bank just deals with it automatically. So I'm not sure what the current exchange rates are for other places, other countries, but is the enrollment form as is. Nancy says, is the cost in US dollars? Yes, it is. Jennifer, the UK price, what you would, well, let me just look at that quickly for you. The UK price for the annual membership is £243. But the checkout is at the same place. So you would, even though you make the payment in US dollars, your bank converts it automatically. So the annual price is $243, and the monthly price, £27, I think. Yes, so $35 is about £27. $315 is about £240. That's for the annual membership with all those bonuses. Sarah says, thank you for answering my question. You're very welcome. Pat asks how much in euros. Pat, the euro price of the annual membership is €280. And then the monthly price in euros is about 30, I think, 31 euros a month. So it's it's the price of one lesson with a language teacher per month. Except, of course, you get this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So so just once again, the annual price is $243. Let me type this in for you there. So it is 243 British pounds, and euros. That's the annual price there. Okay. Linda says, if I'm at level B2 plus but need more work with listening and speaking, is this for me? What I'd say, Linda, it depends whether you are comfortable working with authentic material. So if you are comfortable reading books, watching movies, watching TV, really my honest advice is you just need to do a lot more of that. That's my advice to you. But what a lot of people find is that they have trouble reading books, they have trouble watching TV and things like that. And so what that means is they don't study because the material is too difficult for them. So in that event, it comes into play, because what you've got is all the material you need to actually study at a level that is appropriate for you, if you see what I mean, right? Just study at a level that you can actually understand and comprehend. So hopefully that makes sense. I mean, again, if you're really confident and you spend all day consuming native level material, then you may find that the academy material is not. I would advise you just to do more of that, really. But again, if you are looking for the community and the inspiration and the motivation, and the personal help and the targeted material, then in that case it's right for you. Okay. Okay, so Lynn says, I started a couple of weeks ago and impressed so far. Oh, thank you very much, Lynn. Very pleased to hear. So Robert says, Ollie, are you going to tell us how to join soon? It's 12:30 p.m. and lunch is here and ready. Okay. Robert, I'm not sure if you're still here, but hopefully the information's there for you. Valerie says, is there more language than Spanish in the academy? Not right now, Valerie. It's just the it is just the just Spanish right now. Barbara says, do you have a beginner's course? Barbara, it's on its way, actually. I'm working on it at the moment, so you should be able to hear it very soon. Okay. Any more questions, guys? Go ahead and type them in. I'm very happy to stay on and answer as many questions as you have. Linda says, gracias. De nada, Lidia. Okay, everybody. If you do have any particular questions about Celestar, then then feel free to stick them in. Lee says, please may I have details on the beginner's course when available? Yeah, Lee, absolutely. If you would like to, well, Lee, if you're on my email, the information very soon. Alternatively, if you would like to drop me an email, then I could put you on a separate specific list. So I'll let you know first. Up to you. I will be emailing everybody about it. But if you're very keen, then feel free to drop me an email and we can chat there. So Srat says, what technique did you use to learn Spanish? I'm sorry you've already answered this. I arrived late. So it's not really what we were talking about today. It was more today we were talking more about a specific grammar point. We're talking about ser and estar. But generally, I mean, I surrounded myself with Spanish people, and I talked a lot, and I studied hard. I worked really hard at it. Is the basic answer. And then I've never lived in a Spanish-speaking country, but I have visited many times and have lots of friends who also speak Spanish. Sarah says, I was wondering the same thing, Lydia. I'm around B2 speaking, living in Spain, but need more work on grammar specifics. I think I'll check out the trial materials first to see if that's right for me. Okay, Sarah, hope you enjoy. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much for joining the class. I hope it was useful for you. From what I saw, based on your answers, it seems that you have understood very well what we were talking about. Obviously, there's always more to learn, right? But what I've tried to do is raise your awareness to the point where you will now be able to go off and hopefully never ignore any instance of ser or estar that you see again. So have a great day. wherever you are. Great evening, great morning, depending on where you are, and I'll see you very soon. Hasta luego. Cuídense. Adiós.